Hello, I'm Stephanie Greene, and we're here today to talk about the Brattleboro Words Project's book, Print Town: Brattleboro's Legacy of Words. The purpose of each of these short videos is to unpack one of the many interesting features of the book and of our history. I'm here today with Christina Gibbons, who wrote a fascinating sidebar on Mary Tyler, wife of Royal Tyler. Tyler authored The Maternal Physician, published in 1811, and Grandmother Tyler's book, which was published in 1925, 60 years after her death. Welcome, Christina.
Hello, Stephanie. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to have this opportunity to talk about Mary Tyler, whom I've been working on since 1984, off and on.
Wow. Oh, cool. Well, I've been saying that Mary Tyler was the Dr. Spock of her era, but that's not really accurate, is it? First of all,
No, but it's a useful comparison. She did write a child care manual, and so did he. But there are many, many differences. His book deals with children from 0 to 12, and it's mostly about behavior. Whereas hers, and I'll read the title page if I may.
Please do.
Was called The Maternal Physician, a treatise on the nurture and management of infants from the birth until 2 years old, being the result of 16 years' experience in the nursery by an American matron.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So that says a lot about what this book is. She goes on in her introduction to say that she was motivated to write it because she was reading old newspapers and she noticed how many children under 2 were dying. At that time, it was very common for middle class and upper middle class families to send their babies to wet nurses for 2 years. Where maybe they didn't get the best of care. She calls it gross mismanagement. But she was living in an era where there was becoming a shift in family relationships, the romantic era, more affection between husbands and wives, and more affection between parents and children. So she's advocating that the mother is the child's best physician, that you nurse the child yourself, you're right there every day watching each little sniffle or rash, and you, the manual says how to treat common childhood illnesses with many herbs and tinctures, which every housewife should have on hand and know how to use, and also when to call the doctor if it becomes morbid.
So now how many children at this point when she wrote the book, how many children had she raised?
She had 8 children by this time, 16 years in the nursery. She went on to have another 3. All 11 of her children lived at least until young adulthood. So she knew what she was talking about, and she was very successful as a parent. She talks a little tiny bit about the formation of character, which is also, you train the child gently not to be headstrong and grab for things, even as an infant. But really her focus is on physical care.
Now, she had a lot of, you mentioned tinctures and herbs. So was this generally acceptable? I mean, I think, of course, rather muddily of Salem, and anyone who went into the woods and got herbs was suspect. But generally, this was an accepted practice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And is among certain people today. I mean, if you don't want to buy medicines and you want to do something, but in her day it wasn't alternative. In her day it was mainstream to gather herbs and to know how to use them.
Huh. Now, what was her writing style like?
In this book, there are moments when she's quite formal and flowery. clearly she's an intelligent woman. Although she was educated solely at home by her mother. And she also quotes little snippets of poetry and funny quotes from physicians and so on. And then occasionally she'll lapse into a little personal note about, her baby George was reaching for her watch and she gently said, "Oh no, George, you can't have that." So it's a combination of formal and informal.
Mm.
And she didn't sign it. She didn't attach her name to it. It's called An American Matron, because at that time women shunned public life. They didn't think they belonged in public life.
Hmm. Now, do we know if these books were popular? Did they sell well? Do we have any idea?
We know it went into 3 printings, 1811, 1816, and 1826. There are only 6 copies left in historical libraries around the country, which suggests that, it wasn't widely used. There were certainly manuals by English physicians available. And there are many more of those copies available, so we think they probably sold better. But she has the distinction of being the first American author to publish a childcare manual.
That's fantastic. Now, her other book, Grandmother Tyler's book, did sell widely, right?
I think so. It's because it's was published by Putnam's through the good offices of her descendants in 1925, and you can go to Brooks Library and take out a copy from the circulation department. It gives a picture of what her youth was. She grew up outside Boston. Her father took place in the Boston Tea Party. And she lived all the way through the end of the Civil War. So she has a sense of her place in American history. She writes the book. She starts the book by saying, "My dear children, you've given me this beautiful journal, and I will do the best I can to put down these family memories for you." And she spent 6 years doing it, ending when she was 88 and a half.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty impressive.
Well, yeah. So could you finish with reading a short excerpt from your sidebar? That would be great.
Yeah. So this is the last paragraph of her journal, which is called Grandmother Tyler's book. She meant it. Her audience is clearly her children and grandchildren, and probably great-grandchildren by then. "Now I think I have written enough. I began with an account of my birth and the Great Revolution, the birth of the American nation. And now I have lived to see her struggling for life with her own rebellious children. What will be the final issue is known only to him whose right to rule we joyfully acknowledge and whose wisdom we implicitly trust. If I should attempt to record all the incidents and events of the last 50 years of my life, my strength and your patience would be exhausted. Therefore, I bid you adieu. I am now 88 years and 8 months old."
How great. Thank you.
And I hope that when I'm 88, my writing voice is that confident and intelligent.
Well, I suspect it will be. Thank you so much, Christina. This has been terrific. Really appreciate it.